Hi, everyone in North America, Europe, Romania, and everywhere in the world. Thank you for tuning in to a new edition of the Feraru conferences online, our platform of transatlantic dialogue named after what we believe to be the founder of professional cultural diplomacy in Romanian professional cultural diplomacy in the United States. Today's guest is Professor Adrian Bejan, a distinguished professor of engineering at the prestigious Duke University, a world-renowned scientist with seminal contributions to physics and thermodynamics, with the author of more than 30 books, showered with the prizes all over the world, including the Franklin Medal, the Humboldt Award, the French Order of academic palms, and many other. You can see behind him on the wall there are some of them, but I can assure you that there is more to it. Professor Bejan is the discoverer of what he coined the constructal law, which is a fundamental universal law similar to laws of mechanics or thermodynamics. And we will talk a lot about that and about the applications of this law to other human phenomena. And last but not least, he's a striking, original, and courageous author, a courageous thinker, the author of a theoretical system that explains, well, everything, like life itself, from physics to biology to social organization to arts, sports, and many other, indeed, all aspects of life. Professor Bejan, it's great to have you in the program. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm flattered that you selected my case for examination.
It's not an examination. It would be probably the other way around. I just want to warn all our viewers that if they are not extraordinarily proficient in superior mathematics or Einstein-like aware of physics, they must not follow this program. They should turn off the computer right away. Oh no, I'm just kidding. We won't talk about numbers, we won't talk about formulas, we won't talk about equations, but we will focus more on the applications of the constructal law as described in some of the latest books of Professor Bejan's. Books like The Physics of Life, which we are happy to announce will be published in Romania, I think next year, at the Humanitas Publishing House, one of the most prestigious publishing houses in Romania, but also other books that deal with many aspects of life, like design in nature, how constructor law governs the evolution of biology, physics, technology, and social organization, and Freedom and Evolution, the latest book, Hierarchy in Nature, Society, and science. So where Professor Bejan, starting from constructor law and from physics, deals with other topics that are, I think, much more understandable for us lay people. So Professor Bejan, I'd like to start because I find it very, very interesting. You are a brilliant scientist. You are one of the most respected scientists in the United States and in the world. You have published a lot on physics, thermodynamics, and other scientific matters. And yet, with the latest books, it seems to me that you open the range of your interests to many other things, and you have created this theoretical system that belongs, I should say, more to a philosopher. How do you explain this transition from scientist to what I would call a bona fide philosopher?
Well, I will start with your last word. All these people who present themselves as professors of this or of that, they have at least one title of PhD, or which literally means a Doctor of Philosophy, which originally meant teacher, that's doctor, of the love of wisdom. So I don't see any so-called conflict or surprise or new urge in your presentation of what I'm doing. It's always been that, actually from a child. The urge is to make sense of what's around me, everything, not just the parents and the food on the table, but the animals, and then the water down the Danube River. All these things were interesting, and clearly, the city itself had been curious about these things forever, which is why the city happened and why it continuously morphed. So as a kid, I knew that things were changing, and that was interesting, just interesting. And so the urge is in fact very, very common. It's very pedestrian. The confidence that tomorrow will be different than today, forget that, the confidence that today is different than yesterday, that is in every, I think it is in every animal, not just in every human being. So there is nothing unusual about this. What is unusual, in fact, here is a big thank you to America, is that here you can call the urge by whatever name you want, from singing to playing basketball. Here you have the you're allowed to sing your song and to play your game. You are not forced to dance to somebody else's music.
Of course, you have this freedom here, but what I was meant was that for many years, as a researcher, as a professor, as a scientist, you spoke to a much smaller group, a group of specialists.
True.
But now with your latest books and the topics that you tackle, obviously you are talking, in fact, to the whole world, because your books are very well received. I read by millions of people, and also deal with themes and topics like, for instance, sport, by applying your discoveries in physics to the various aspects of our life. And that's what I would for me was when I read your books, at least part of some of your books, one entirely, was, or doing research for this program. It was striking, the fact that you had a very well design, which is an important word for you, a very well designed, very well crafted, thought of system, theoretical system. And now, and it was also striking in a world of some would call epistemological nihilism, the fact that some people believe that today everything is discourse. Everything is constructed, everything is discourse against fact. Everything is constructed against objective reality. You have the temerity and the talent, I would add, to put forth a theory of everything. Again, it's one of your, the titles of one of your books, that is grounded in a universal principle, a powerful principle as the laws of nature, which is the constructal law. How do you see in this world of uncertainty and relativity?
I would like to explain this bit of personal history that you recounted. There's nothing unusual about it. In fact, the things that you described were not born yesterday with these books about design in nature. I started publishing 50 years ago. From the beginning, I had the cat in my thermodynamics, the dog in my thermodynamics. There were references to, I had a theory of how to predict the diameter of the hair strand of any animal. You tell me the size, I'll tell you the hair strand diameter. But these are acts of coming from me, intellectual pleasure for me and my readers, obviously my students first. I was not claiming any universality to anything. The one word that applied to my entire career, which eventually, yes, developed into so-called constructive law. This is recent, the constructive law. The one word for the whole behavior or attitude is freedom, or a lack of constraints, imposed on myself. But this formation of mine really came from the way I was raised. I grew up, I was very fortunate to receive a European education. People don't talk about that, especially in America. This sort of thing is poo-pooed, you know. But this is what I received. At the high school called Vascularization in Galați, I was educated in all directions, never mind the Marxist indoctrination. That was easy to discount, but we were given properly everything: math, physics, geography, history, foreign languages, plural, and of course Latin, and basically everything, including graphic arts and music. Galați in my time was a cultural center. There was no metallurgical behemoth there. When I was growing up, there was opera and theater and all these things. And of course, old books. And I had parents who were speaking foreign languages. They were apolitical. They were free people, both in prison, by the way, because of that, and who in a house were talking about we European values, and talking a lot about freedom, incidentally. And so this package of thinking freely while being unable to speak, is how I grew up. And then I truly became somebody because of basketball, which raised me. My beloved coach just passed away, Petrica Vasiliou, who then became the coach of the national team. He basically raised me and taught me this behavior of working not only constantly every day to stay informed, but to work with program, meaning not to kill myself, and to sleep well, and to live clean. These things come from growing up as a player. My parents sent me to art school because they saw early that I knew how to draw, or I had an inclination toward that. That of course opened the door very wide to this business of design in nature, which is all basically. From the beginning, I did not see any difference between art and science, or between you mentioned science and engineering. That's there's no difference there. Engineering is the science of useful processes and contrivances. It's a science, a body of knowledge. And to give you the answer to the whole thing, which is in terms of a basketball metaphor, why changes happen as the performer becomes older. What happens is that when the show finds traction or finds an audience, then I'm talking about in this case the player. Then the player, even if coming from a isolated country, the player becomes an international, meaning that his audience becomes bigger. He gets invited to play for Barcelona or whatever. You get the idea. Yep. And so unwittingly, I found myself surrounded by a bigger audience, which was composed of not of specialists, but of people who are truly, honestly interested in learning. People without an axe to grind. People who don't have a knife behind their back. Meaning they are not competing with me. They're curious.
They want to learn. They want to share knowledge. That's the idea.
Yes, and they feel free to answer back in their own way in this wonderful language of the unbiased. Okay, and I discovered this is the beginning of 20 years ago because I wrote my first. Let's say, book in which I stepped off the curb, called The Shape and Structure from Engineering to Nature. I found that I'm happier. I'm happier, meaning I'm improving. I'm seeing more things, and I'm actually talking to people who are a lot more interesting than the bulk of my previous audience. And this is what I teach. In fact, right before this interview, I taught my course. I tell my students, look, you are here to have fun, with this little bit of science that we're sharing together. You're not here to become a automaton. You're here to question. So I teach people to question.
You enjoyed writing. You found an international audience. Definitely you are playing for Liverpool or Barcelona now, according to your your international reputation. So you are definitely a big player. Professor Bejan, let's talk about the constructal law, about the concepts that you are operating with. And freedom is not only something very important in personal terms, in biographical terms, but also it's a central concept, tenet of your theory and findings and scientific findings. The constructor law is about freedom, but also concepts like blending, morphing, like evolution in physical terms, and very important, the concept of design that is a sort of basis of everything that is that can be encountered in life, either human, animal, or objects. So let's, because probably some of our viewers may not be that familiar with your theory and with the constructor law, let's talk a little bit about, try to describe it a little bit, and then we'll go on with some of the applications of your system in various aspects of life.
Well, a single law of physics is a short summary of observations that repeat themselves in the billions. That repeatable observation is called phenomenon. And there are very few distinct phenomena. One is the gravitational fall of an object. Another one is the so-called conservation of energy, known in mechanics as what goes up must come down. The other one from thermodynamics, the second law, is that anything by itself flows from high to low, meaning one way. It's called the phenomenon of irreversibility. Mm-hmm. And it occurred to me, because I teach these fundamental principles called first principles, the ones I just enumerated. It occurred to me that that the nature, which is actually captured by these laws, is not captured completely, because nature impresses us, those phenomena impress us with images that are discerned by us. We make drawings of them, we make paintings, sculptures, and today we make movies. Images. And in these images, the actors are of all kinds, biological or inanimate, you know, the rivers, the snowflakes, the lightning. Everything is about, you mentioned the word design. Design really means drawing, disegno from the Renaissance, drawing. But these drawings are not static. They are constantly morphing, they're jiggling around. So, but the direction in which they are morphing is also obvious. This was obvious to me growing up. My father actually showed me, because at one point he was raising chickens because there was no meat in Romania. And he showed me the growth of the embryo of the chicken on the inside surface of the egg. He had a lighting system that would show me from evening to evening this architecture, which today we know when we go to the eye examination as the vascularization of the retina. But back then I did not know that. I knew how to draw the map of the Danube Delta, which was the same thing that was appearing on the inside of the egg shell. And so I knew from those early days that the so-called design in nature is, first of all, non-denominational. Animate and inanimate does not matter to this drawing. And second, from the chicken embryo, this drawing is a movie. And if you get that idea, then you go back into the history of the geography of a place like Romania or the Danube Delta, and you realize that the channels, the branches, the tributaries, all these things that you see on the map, and you're actually taught in school to draw, originally were not there. Originally, they were 10 kilometers west. Maybe they had meandered differently, and they gave birth to lakes and swamps that are no longer flowing. All of that has to do with the so-called change after change after change in time, and the name for that is evolution. So what was missing in this very thin book of principles of physics is the law of physics of evolution. which means design change, never mind the change, but the direction of the design change, the directionality of the reality. And that means the law of objective or of purpose. So that is what the constructive law brings to this very, very powerful package that allows us to be confident about predicting tomorrow. So the constructive law is really intentionally stated in street language. It is the observation for anything to persist in time, which is the physics definition of to live.
To live.
It must evolve with freedom, so that it provides a greater and easier access to what flows. That's the end of the aha. And you can stick into, in place of these words, the words that you like, the growth of the chicken embryo, or the evolution of the river basin, or the evolution of your own city, I mean, the city traffic, or on and on and on. In fact, many people have been invoking this principle without calling it a self-standing law of physics. But what has been missing is this, and it is the fact that it has been missing that's responsible for the very famous conflict between one group that claims this in the science versus another group that claims this in science. Here I'm referring to Darwin is here and creation is here and on and on. I am not interested in that. I'm interested in helping all holders of points of view in developing a better narrative for their own point of view, one that is frankly as irrefutable as mine. Because if you make a statement of physics, you make a statement, the prediction of which can be tested, it can be measured. Physics is not opinion. I'm not a politician. I may have urges, but my number one urge is to stay out of it. I'm offering my students first physics, which is not opinion. In other words, if you can come up with better physics, wonderful. Please come up, do it better.
But it's we will come back to the concepts of your findings, of course, at the Constructor Law, but. I'd like to ask you, I mean, you describe everything in physical terms. Everything starts and ends in the physical realm. But is there anything beyond that? Can there be postulated something that is beyond what is governed by the Constructor Law?
All right. First of all, words matter. Especially in science. You say physics, you say physical terms. That's the word physics is a buzzword of a very, very recent vintage, meaning it's like the cheap wine. Yes, until the mid-1800s, it was called natural sciences. That's the way it was called at the high school where I was a little boy at Vasile Alexandrie in Galatz, okay? Natural sciences. Why? Because the word physics is the Greek word that later became natura in Latin. And physis in Greek means, quote, natural things, unquote, meaning things that happen by themselves. So physics is about everything. Physics is about everything that is. It has always been this way. And the fact that the English, gave it this new name, 150 years ago, I'm not impressed by that. the point is, and with that name and with the advent of mathematics, say calculus, all of a sudden, the study of matter, the study of particles, the study of this and that, of relativity, cosmology, became impregnated in mathematics, to the point that today most kids are taught that physics is mathematics, or that mathematics is physics, and that and they make the huge mistake of regarding mathematics as a lot more than it is, which is really not a theory, mathematics, and all of that is frankly the cacophony that dominates the university campus today, or the tall walls between departments on every campus today. No, that is not the way it was. Science comes from amateurs or polymaths that had the freedom to have fun with ideas that occurred to them or to their friends, or for that matter to the peasant next door whose pig was dying. You know, you have no idea what mother gives birth to what child that grows up to be an iconoclast. That is the stream that has been feeding the science that we celebrate with very few names in the books that we use today. So physics is liberating to those who know the meaning of that word. But to those who do not know the meaning, I think it's much more important to tell the story in words that are not picked, let's say, from a Greek with the intent to separate us. Okay. So anyway, I don't know how I got on this tangent. The point is that
no, it's important. It's important because you once said that before numbers and formulas, we have words, and you have to describe a principle or a tenet or a theory in words, even if you are in a scientific environment. If you can't do that, there may be something wrong with your theory.
Me scusi. Before numbers and formulas, we had observation. Here is the number, okay? This is why we have the decimal system. This is why we have digits in the computer language. Okay, first was the image. After that came the word, and or the musical note. But first was well, everything. In fact, for the animals that matter, the big ones that constantly reshape the surface of the earth, there was the eye, vision, the Cambrian explosion. This is what gave the sensory arsenal of the animal immense power relative to what was previously, and what gave obviously everything to who we are today: the sense of time, the sense of the difference between left and right, or forward and backward, the sense of danger as opposed to safety, and yes, warmth versus cold, and on and on. These are the precursors to these, let's call them very modest add-ons called writing, singing, storytelling, and the mathematics. These are small things relative to fire, for example, and vision before that.
They may be small, but at the Romanian Cultural Institute, they are bread and butter. So I'll be asking about freedom and creativity a little bit later. But before that, you of course your principle is rooted in observation, is rooted in nature, right? But as the constructor law is like any other principal laws or important laws, can define a world where freedom is very hard to imagine, right? It's a world where maybe chance, maybe luck may not mean much, if anything at all. So where is luck, chance in your system?
Well,
if
it's
it should have any place.
first of all, freedom is immense. It's everywhere. Those who grow up playing ball know that the playing field is wide open. It's up to you to go forward or left or right, or to fake the. It's up to you. You have total freedom. In fact, the good coach encourages you to use your freedom and not to stick to a template. So freedom is everywhere. If you don't know that, go out in the street or in the field, just as a very a downpour, torrential rain is beginning, and then you'll see rivers of water on the dry ground. This water is flowing with total freedom. There was no prescription to it except the Constructor Law, which tells it to grow, to spread like a snowflake, or like a radially symmetric Danube Delta. The Danube Delta is just basically 1/3 of this drawing I'm now suggesting. And so there is a law of physics that governs, well, that accounts for the tendency of all these things that happen by themselves to advance in time, meaning to arrange their sequential changes so that they provide greater access to what flows. Right. It's very simple if you put it in these terms, but the important thing is that freedom is everywhere. And now if you take that, meaning that is what freedom is. Freedom is the physical feature of an entity called system, the physical feature which allows it to change. If it doesn't have the physical characteristic that allows it to change, that particular thing is not changing, and for that matter, because of lack of change, it does not live. It does not get better. All these other things that, in other words, does not evolve. But freedom, if you take this physical feature, by the way, let's go back to even something even simpler, the invention of the steam engine. Here is the cylinder, and here's the piston going in and out, okay? Now, the piston is producing power that you are collecting over here on my right, producing power because it has freedom to slide. If you lock the piston, you've got no engine and you've got no power. So freedom means power. If you are an individual equipped with engine, so that is why freedom is yours. You are the one who invented or purchased an artifact that's endowed with freedom. I'm beginning to tell you in these very simple examples that freedom is not somebody's opinion or a hocus pocus. Freedom is physical, it is real, and it can be measured. It can be measured in two ways. One is what I just described, which is the number of such places where things are moving freely relative to their immediate surroundings. In the example here, there's only one such way of moving, meaning 1 degree of freedom. But the other one that matters to the human being, because now we're talking about the human realm, is the fact that if you have these freely changing features, then it's better for you. You, the owner of that, or you, because you are now this bigger, complicated things that has innumerable artifacts attached to your naked and powerless body. And so freedom, the effect of the presence of freedom can be measured in terms of the enhancement of your own performance, which means the enhancement of your own standard of living, if you want, your own wealth, your own longevity, your own happiness for that matter, and of course, your own mobility on the globe. So that is why freedom is, frankly, the F word that needs to be pronounced from the rooftops everywhere as physics, not as a slogan that ends up being, intentionally misspoken or spoken with, as I say, tendency by the very people who suppress it.
In the constructor law, evidently freedom is a central concept, and the way you define it. But sometimes we see, and also all these entities tend to be more freer, so that they flow more easily. But sometimes, I mean, and increasingly more today, we see that in social terms, in societies throughout the world, freedom is constrained. People are losing freedom, and we can't see, with some exceptions, that the flow is towards more freedom. Isn't it a contradiction here, or to your system? Because again, when rooted in physics and in constructor law, everything must be derived and explained according to that principle.
Sure. Just like the evolution of the river basin, the law of physics, or for that matter, the growth of any snowflake, the law of physics governs the direction of design change. It does not pronounce for anything the smooth continuity of that train or of that movie, or the timing of the particular changes along that script. So the big picture in anything you want to bring up, including the evolution of civilization, the big picture is in complete accord with the constructor law. The big picture is, meaning the scenario of the big movie, is one with a single and very clear direction. It has been from, you can get your starting point, let's say the Bible, toward, it's called emancipation, yes, freedom, literacy, and everything from, love your neighbor to human rights, and everything and of course, loud criticism of the rotten tree logs that fall unpredictably, and they block the streams here and there. So yes, there are intermittent accidents. In the human realm, the accidents have to do with individuals who believe that they know better what's good for large groups, as opposed to what's good for themselves. And that's the history of the recent examples that we know very well. If you want to talk about today, I would like to talk to you about these places, namely communist China and Russia, are both in fact prolonging the rotten tree log, or the hiccups in this otherwise happy movie of steady design change toward easier flowing. In fact, this is how the Earth has become so, let's say, dominated by human presence, is because movement driven by power and by ideas came from the exact opposite of the straitjacket. The people who set the world in motion, or gave it wheels and money in the pockets are those who are in fact engaging in free questioning and free movement and free expression. People who ran away from the camps. That is the big picture. But to put it even more, let's say, aggressively, less aggressively, in biology, my colleagues speak all the time correctly about correlations or trends and outliers. The large population of, you name what you want, say flyers or swimmers, shows a trend. That trend, by the way, is predictable from the Constructive Law. But around that trend, the so-called data arrange themselves as a cloud, like the Frankfurter on a skewer on the fire. You know, there's a thickness to the cloud of data. The cloud of data is slender, but it's not of zero thickness. So those are the examples in the thick are the outliers. The diversity is also part of the physics. The diversity, which I treat very seriously in this book, Freedom and Evolution, that too is predictable. And so the trend, the feature of the design, quote unquote, and the fact that design is a bit fuzzy, both features come hand in glove, or finger inside the finger of the glove, and they're both predictable, and they are not at all scary. By the way, the human tendency to tell others what to do is also predictable, because every single aspect of a social organization is of a selfish nature. So yes, when you have a Hitler who entrains people in his thinking, well, he did that because it was good for him, and the people who joined thought that it was good for them to join. That is, meaning that's the origin of the outlier, or the origin of the hiccup that in fact is destined to be short-lived. These acts of tyranny, like what's going on now with the Uyghur in Western China, these things have what's the word? Are unsustainable. Why? Because everything that moves, and that includes all human beings, are like all animals, meaning they're on Earth with a desire to be left alone, meaning in freedom.
In your system, how notions like right and wrong are integrated? Have you thought of the moral implications of your thinking? Of course, in the latest books, you've dealt with the application of constructor law in many aspects of our life, and of course in nature in general, but also in societies. But how would you integrate a moral question in your thinking?
I'm weak at that at this domain of the moral. I plead, let's say, I don't plead ignorance. I just have to say that I have not been trained in this direction. In fact, I did not know for a few years in the beginning that the constructor law was a law of physics. I was grabbed by the neck by a professor of philosophy from Amiens in France, who told me that, look, Adrian, you have here a law of physics, you don't have a theory. And then she explained the difference. I'm not trained, okay? This thing that with the right and wrong, well, I know plenty about that from
Your own
engineering. From
experience.
engineering, we know the difference between correct and incorrect, or correct versus mistake. And we know, of course, about the price that you make if you pay for or design and then build something that's destined to violate the second law of thermodynamics. That you may call that stupidity. And that is why we know the difference between right and wrong. If I were to put it in physics terms, now the physics of human life, yes, I know plenty about that. It's not about morals. It's the fact that if you do the wrong thing, you suffer. Your life suffers if you jump off the balcony. Okay, sorry. Sorry, that's the, and by the way, you benefit from knowing Galileo Galilei's law of gravitational fall. You benefit from doing the right thing, which is right as opposed to wrong, and not jumping. You see, that's why physics is important. By the way, with all of science, you are better equipped to do the right thing as opposed to the wrong thing. This is why science is addictive. Science, the goodness of science goes unquestioned. This is why parents send their children to school. This is why in the United States, the taxpayer pours huge amounts of money into scientific research, not asking what results should be produced, but out of the obvious, out of the conviction that it's better to know than not to know.
Although from time to time science is applied to criminal endeavors, and science has been at the origin of horrible things. I mean, it can be neutral, it can be a force for good, but sometimes, you know, in not only in incapable hands, it may be the reverse of the problem.
Which is, yes, I would like, yes, I'm equipped to comment on that. The famous case from the Industrial Revolution was that railroads were killing people and animals, and of course were taking the land away from the sheep herders and from people who are cultivating things. Okay, but over time, society developed ways, meaning designs, in order designs for the purpose of yes, empowering everybody. So, but yes, with every new technology like nuclear power right after the Second World War, come dangers, bad actors. Today we have bad actors galore because of this new technology called the internet. You've got fraud everywhere. But this is why, alongside a new evolutionary design has been evolving, and that is the system of laws. The systems of laws, the system of catching the bad actors and punishing them, and bad actors at all levels, not just individuals. And so I'm not at all worried about tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the same as it ever was, namely just like yesterday, or 40 years ago, or 200 years ago. Because people are not stupid. If we get killed at railroad passing, we invent ramps or underpasses. This is our history. Or you go back in antiquity, for that matter. You know, ramparts and armies developing everything from shields to prostheses and bandages and you know, medical devices. Medicine has its origin in the mayhem, in the disaster. A lot of what we take for granted today came from these answers to dangers brought into play by new technology.
I must confess that I have rarely heard, especially recently, so much optimism and scientific optimism, because I think we live in a time of a lot of concerns and a lot of tragedies and a lot of pessimism. I would say, the more so that now we are passing through a terrible crisis that has claimed a lot of lives, and I'm thinking of the medical crisis, but not only that, the reverberations of this crisis in many aspects of life.
Let me give you the good news. Yes, horrible crisis. It is. That's a horrible story. But every crisis, as is an opportunity really for society to equip itself to be ready, not to be surprised next time. The infrastructure available for so-called supply chains everywhere in the West was in fact designed to face the needs during the Second World War. Since then, many things happened, and some changes happened to this architecture of human flow of people and material because of the Cold War and NATO versus Warsaw Pact, all that. But that was really small stuff compared with what was needed during the Second World War. But since then, it's been a historic long period of peace, which of course is responsible for the surge in the wealth of the entire globe. Okay, peace. And so when you're in peace, when you're well fed and you sleep well, you let your guard down, just like the boxer who thinks that he won the match before the match was over. But it takes only one punch for this man full of confidence to hit the floor. So that's what happened to the likes of the U.S. and other highly advanced societies. But after this disaster, I guarantee that all these territories and all these societies will be much better, let's say,
we to deal with a pandemic or a crisis of this magnitude.
With not only with the infrastructure, but with the expectation that the danger is around the corner, and that means to use much better binoculars to look at what the neighbors are doing.
Yeah, well, it's indeed a good news. Let's hope it's going to be a good news, and we will have learned, the hard lessons of this period. You talk about predictions, of course, constructor law and other concepts that you use are predictive. You predicted quite well that with my questions we won't have enough time to to cover everything and all the ground that we intended. But I won't stop at 1 hour, because there are certain things that I'm dying of asking. And one is a paradoxical view about consumption. And that may put you on a collision course with ecology activists and ecology organizations, because you said we are bound to consume more. We need to consume more, and this is the way. This is the way life and this flow will evolve. But how do you reconcile that with the lack of consumption, with the restraint?
I did not make that prediction. What I showed first is the fact that there is a to me, not surprising, perfect alignment between the annual consumption of fuel on the globe and the economists' measure of annual wealth called gross domestic product, which means that every group, every government is striving to increase the wealth, the well-being, measured in many ways, of that particular society, the group. But clearly, that is coming from my work, synonymous with having to consume more fuel. Yeah, right. However, whereas all the groups want to become wealthier from year to year, and obviously necessarily they climb up on that ladder by burning more fuel. As I also show in this book, I think the most recent one, this march upward toward greater wealth and more fuel consumption is also accompanied by a reduction in the rate at which the population of the group is increasing. So world population is doing the opposite of exploding. If you look at the shape of the S curve of the world's population, it's predicted by the UN to plateau in 2050. Okay, so that's one. But the other thing that's been happening is that because of science and the evolution of technology, every group, well, this starts with the most advanced countries, are discovering how to move more per unit of fuel burned. That means to make more efficient anything, more efficient, not just vehicles, but ways of heating and air conditioning and anything, okay? And of course, communications, okay. So that these two additional trends are the ones that are contradicting the impression that what I predicted is that the world is going to keep burning fuel to the point of burning the globe like the head of a match, the thing you light the fire with. Okay, no, why? Because people are not stupid. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's, and you once said that knowledge is infectious, is easily emulated. You know, and while reading that, you know, there's so many paradoxical statements, or what I believe there were paradoxical statements, because I thought that stupidity is very contagious and not knowledge. But
excuse me. Actually, knowledge is contagious. At the same time, the jokes about stupidity are contagious. Yeah, but stupidity is definitely not contagious.
Okay.
People run away from that. People certainly run away from places on the globe that are run by stupid leaders. Okay.
That's for sure. And
that's by that I mean people who never went to school. All right, and I know plenty about such examples. So no, stupidity is not attractive, but jokes about that are attractive.
We don't have time to tell more about that, the jokes, you know, but we'll leave it from when we get out of the live transmission. But another important concept, and we will slowly flow towards the end of our conversation, in the design of a delta, because we have covered, you know, all directions, big and small. It's the concept of hierarchy. It's even present in your latest book, which is called Freedom and Evolution, right? Hierarchy in biology, in
everywhere,
in physics, yeah. and in society. hierarchy, meaning that there in this world that you are describing, that is based on and is defined by the constructor law, some entities are bigger, I mean, become even bigger and depend very much on the smaller parts. And this is like a dialectic, like the dialectic connection. There is no, I mean, they cannot be detached, or they cannot be one without the other. And this implies, you know, a fatality, this hierarchy. And I would like to ask you, you know, when translated in societies or in the social in the social world, you know, do you think that this hierarchy is a given for every society, that we can't, because we see a lot of inequality, we see a lot of discrepancy, we see a lot of hierarchy. So is it something that is as immutable as your concept?
Hierarchy happens. I don't see the fatality, by the way, because every time a designer of society try to replace hierarchy with the one size fits all, it was the one size fits all that died, you see. So no, but hierarchy happens, just like the river channels in the river basin. Hierarchy does not, hierarchy really means organization. It is a very precise, wonderful single word for an image, a drawing that consists of few large and many small. It doesn't mean diversity, meaning beans of many sizes thrown into a sack. It means an organized montage, if you want.
Yeah, like an architecture, right?
Architecture, yeah, that's human made, that's correct. And by the way, architect, the word itself speaks of hierarchy. This is the chief cutter in the making of the church, architect. That's what the word, okay, just like archbishop, there you go, or hierarch in religion means the chief priest.
Indeed.
These things happen naturally. You cannot have a university without hierarchy, or for that matter, a government, or especially army. Never mind that. You cannot have a basketball team without hierarchy, okay? But these things happen, and they happen for the very simple reason that every single individual involved in this small size organization, from a basketball team to university and then society, is in it for himself, out of selfish interest. You see, it is good for every single participant in this organization for that, let's call it design, if you want, or flow system, because things are moving down these arteries and veins, to be organized in this fashion. And this is important, by the way. On my campus, for example, the administration speaks all the time, highly predictably, about equality, all the time. But who is doing the speaking? The individuals at the top of the hierarchical ladder. So, but they're right. If they want to, increase the permeability of the flow system that the university represents, needed is the hierarchy. Therefore, the let's call them critics of hierarchy, who conflate hierarchy with inequality, are dead wrong for two reasons. It is that if they want the so-called equality to diversity, they should not strive to tear down the very machine that allows them to achieve that end. That's the way I see, frankly, not only the present, but also why the future is full of optimism, because Even if you destroy it, it comes back to what it was before, as if it was hidden at the roots of the grass. You thought that you buried it, forget it. It grows back the way it was.
And I would end on because we are at the Romanian Cultural Institute's program, of course, and we deal in creativity and art. I would end on a question regarding creativity and creativity as defined through your theory. Where does it stand? How do you see it according to your vision?
Well, creativity has to do with the parents that give birth to you and the family in which you are raised, whether that family impregnated you in a culture that encourages questioning. So there's randomness to that. There is chance, and yes, singularity in the assembly of loaves of bread that come out of the bread factory. Not all loaves are the same. Okay, so creativity, because of that, is not something that I can teach now to adults. And I can teach that even less to my peers, creativity. Creativity is the ability to come up, to think of new ideas. That means to create new images, meaning new mental viewings. That's what creativity is. Well, try to teach an army of, I won't name the population, to be all like Picasso, okay? You cannot do that. I mean, you can try it, and then, frankly, you better run into the woods because people will laugh at you. So that's creativity. So I'm not interested in that, but I can teach the importance of questioning everything from the meaning of the word to the correctness of the principle, and also the authority of the presenter.
But what can constructal law teach us about creativity? How do you integrate that? When is the nature described by the constructor law creative?
Yeah, that answer was covered previously. Obviously, the constructor law covers the fact that in order to be creative, you need freedom in order to create. So no freedom, no design change, no time direction. Yes, no creating of anything. Therefore, no time, and for that matter, no future. No future. I mean, so if you want to put all those things together, and you don't have enough paper, then read that page in my book where the constructor law is stated.
I think people should read all your books. They make a fascinating reading. I mean, it's very persuasive and very amazing. I should say, even when you are paradoxical and very critical to what you believe to be common ideas that have run out their course. But it's great to end on this note that in order to survive, we need more flow, we need more creativity, we need change. All these phenomena and aspects that you have covered in your purely scientific books and in your books about many aspects outside the hard science or engineering. Professor Bejan, it's been truly a pleasure and really an honor to have had you in the program. Thank you for spending this fall afternoon with us and with many viewers that I'm sure have enjoyed listening to you and will rush to read this book and to buy it or to borrow it from the libraries. Our fellow Romanians back home, they can have it at when Humanitas Publishing House is going to publish it. That is not quite soon.
It will appear soon, before Christmas.
Before Christmas. So what an excellent treat before Christmas,
right,
when we used to talk about everything, and that everything has a proper name. So thank you again for being with us. I also thank our viewers who have been not only patient, but I know enthusiastic, following us. Our online program obviously continues with new conversations and episodes of our permanent series. Follow us on social media and on rciusa.info on our website. Thank you, Transconcentric, for co-producing this series with us. But most of all, Professor Bejan, thank you for these ideas. Maybe some of them may be so new and striking for some of us that probably they require more deepening, and definitely we would love to have you back with a new conversation about these fascinating concepts.
Thank you for the opportunity.